Happy New Year! 2025 promises to be a year like no other. The last time the world was prepared to make a quantum leap like this was 1779. Scott and I are going to break down 2025 for all 12 signs in this special Leading Out Loud edition of New Era Readings.
I got the secret sauce for you guys. Keep streaming.
I don't just talk stuff and repeat stuff. I'm living this stuff.
And you can thank me for covering your astro.
Hello, friends. Welcome to LOL Leading Out Loud, the astrology psychic shift show that uses superhuman powers of conscious observation to explore and explain the wild frontiers of conscious evolution. I'm psychic astrologer Sensei Christopher Oteki with my co-host, psychic medium Scott Cruz. Happy New Year, Scott. Can you believe it's January, man?
What's that?
Can you believe it's January already?
I can, actually. It's been a good 2024, like going to that finish line. How are you done with 2024? So 2025 is here finally. So yeah, it's good. It's good to be here.
You're crisp with the time, even though you're in Aquarius, right?
Sometimes.
It bleeds for me a little bit. Well, in our episode today, Scott and I are going to be breaking down 2025 into bite-sized takeaways for all 12 signs, so our viewers have a gist of what to expect. But first, let's dive into our psychic surf report, as we like to do. Let's discuss the conscious waves of energy ripping upon the shores of Earth today. This last Monday, Scott, was December 30th. We had our last new moon of 2024. It was at step 9 Capricorn. 9 energy, by the way, is about getting things moving. It's a Mars energy. But most people I was talking to could not keep their eyes open. What was your observation, man, last week on your show and what the energy was like before New Year's?
Exhaustion.
Okay.
Like I said before, because a lot of people would feel like they just like ran a race, So I did definitely see a lot of people kind of unwinding, isolating, hibernating, and all that. Almost the soul's preparing for the business of 2025. So yeah, definitely seen a lot of resting and relaxation, and exhaustion. Like they've just it felt like a race in 2024.
Yeah, well, it was a race. I mean, we'll go over that, I think, too. But you could really feel it, that sliding into the home base there at the end.
Yeah, for sure.
Astrologically, as far as our psychic surf report's concerned, we had a new moon that started off the week on Monday. It was the third new moon of 6 that are at 9 degrees. So there's 6 new moons in a row launching this new version of ourselves. We had Mercury trining Chiron, which is now direct on Tuesday, which basically was sort of probably us getting our head together about, I don't know if I'm sick anymore. I don't know if I should hold myself back anymore. So that's been a real empowering thing. Venus moves into Pisces today, so things should get blurry and slurry. And Mars will oppose Pluto tomorrow on Friday. So what this comes down to astrologically for the report is this week, and we'll go into next week too, is really about inaugurating your new inner regime. That's what that new moon was, to move forward with these. It's funny, I mean, we always have New Year's resolutions every year, right? That's sort of a classic human thing. But this year, the astrology was like literally supporting New Year's resolutions. That new moon was saying, how are you going to be new to yourself, and how are you going to step up for yourself? And overall, with these other things I talked about, like Mercury trining Chiron and Mars opposing Pluto, it comes down to getting right with yourself. And then as we move into next week, the energy says, now that you're right with yourself, look around in your life. What's working? What's not working? What have you picked up energetically, psychically, and with your viewers?
Yeah, I mean, I really, this week primarily has been like a recap, or not a recap, but almost like a finalization of 2024. So I think that we're going to be looking back a lot, this week, and not just because it's a new year. Like you said, the astrology supports it. We're going to be feeling like, wow, I've come a long way from 2024. I've purged a lot. I've kind of created a lot of emotional movement and realizations in 2024. Now I'm ready to take charge and to define what that means in action. So, and so I say that 2025 is a movement of tangible manifestations of the things that we've purged and also realized in 2024. So taking charge, for the most part of this year. So, I felt kind of, I don't know, like a dichotomy of kind of excited, but also irritated at the same time. So there is, No, it's not me. I'm very loving and very fluffy duffy, but I do feel like there's this release too of the old and the new that we're definitely are feeling individually and collectively. So yeah, I think taking charge right now, there's going to be a lot of that excitement moving forward for this coming week and so.
You have live shows on Thursday. You have one tonight, but you had one last week. What was the tone of your audience and the questions there before the new moon, like the end of the year? What were you picking up on?
Well, the typical "what's love in 2025," is kind of very typical, right? But the overall gist I felt, the undertone is people had a lot of hope, or people had a lot of excitement, for 2025. So I've been seeing that on the undertones of the questions, like people knew intuitively, like great things will manifest. And 2025 numerology is a 9. It's a master number of completion and transformation. So even in numerology, it speaks for it.
Yeah, I mean, well, yeah, I love the 9s. I'm a net 9 myself. Yeah, it's funny. I actually felt, so yesterday was New Year's Day, and I felt new. I felt the earth was different. Did you have any shift like that, or was it just me? Like, I literally walked out in Palm Springs, and I was just like, I feel like I'm in a new world.
In what way? Like, in what was the essence that you felt like? I'm just curious.
A new start, like my soul felt like it was getting a new chance or a second chance or a renewal. And I mean, yeah, I didn't expect that. I mean, that's what you have in a new moon. I mean, in a new year, of course, but this year I really felt, I don't know, like I had a fresh start.
Did you feel like also like in any like anticipation energy? Because I've been feeling a lot of anticipation too. Like big things are on the horizon, but there's an anticipation. But at the same time, I feel anxiety. Like I've been feeling like a duality of both energies, the truth and the lie. I've been feeling a lot of that. The past couple days.
I have like the astrology shows like hella. We're going to talk about it after our break as far as what 2025 has coming up. It's intense. But I only feel the good outcome. I do not feel, I'm like in denial of the challenges coming. To me, it's just going to be a piece of cake.
Yeah. Well, for masters, it will be. Yes. For a lot of us who have been doing the work in 2024, it will be like, we'll be kind of like the eye of the storm energy. A lot of us will be like, yeah, it's going around, or I just caught the tragedy, like after great things have happening. So there's gonna be a lot of that too. Strangeness of 2025. And we'll get into that.
Yeah, we totally will. But so moving into this upcoming week, what we're doing, yeah, turn off your phone. What we're doing this week is we're taking this new assembly of ourself, feeling together. And I guess that's what I'm feeling. Maybe it's just a new me I was feeling. I just feel together finally. Whereas 2024 is just not even a hot mess, just a mess. But moving into this next week now, with us feeling together, we all go out into our world. We look at our daily decisions, our commitments, our rituals. I mean, Capricorn is the business of life. And this is the first time we've actually had Capricorn without Pluto in it for 15 years. So every year we had sort of this looming dark presence of Pluto, telling us we're doing something wrong, right? This year, I don't feel like we have that push that we're doing something wrong. It's like, wow, I can actually set this up to succeed. And over the course of this next week for a Psychic Surf Report, basically you're going to be making commitments. Particularly on Tuesday, step 17, Grandmaster Day, the moon goes into Taurus, some sort of a life commitment. So people are going to probably make a decent life commitment. Now, underneath this, we have Mars retrograde. Mars is moving into Cancer. And Mars has been really deflating our ego, deflating our 9 energy. So we've been 9 deflated, really, and we're not at full capacity of our normal aggression. So it allows us to sort of like make choices that aren't necessarily ego driven. So I think it's going to be an interesting commitment. Whatever happens for people next Monday, Tuesday, that commitment probably could not have been made if your ego didn't shut up.
Yeah, I kind of feel too, a lot of it is, especially getting 2025 going, it's going to be very heart focused. Now, the reason I keep saying, the dichotomy, because there's be others in our world that are heart focused and passionate maybe about things that are destructive and chaotic. So we will be seeing that. So as long as you're focusing on exactly what you've, came from and emerged from in 2024 and now acting in the heart, yeah, things would definitely be manifesting in ways that you never maybe thought they would manifest, and things kind of coming together more in sync. And that's a lot of people's optimism of 2025, and knowing that because we've done the work, and we've collectively done the work as well as individually. So, but of course, with that equal positive, there's gonna be that equal, current in our world too. So, we'll get into that deeper. But I think for the most part, yes, everyone's feeling that optimism because they're taking the charge.
I think even with Donald Trump being, the president, I mean, a lot of people were, oh my God, through 2024, please don't let it happen. But now that it's happened, I've been talking to just people in grocery stores and stuff, and
Yeah.
they're like, I'm not so worried this time. It's like we kind of got, we faced all the crazy anxiety in his first term, and I'm seeing a lot of Americans like, we'll see. Really kind of reserved about it, which is interesting too. It's a real relaxed feeling going to 2025 for me, anyways. Yeah.
Well, yeah, because we've been through it all. We've been through so much since COVID. Like we've been
Oh
there,
my
done
God.
that. What can we go through it? At this point. So,
Yeah.
I think people's eyes are open, Christopher. I've been seeing a lot of people's eyes open to a lot of things within the media, what they're being told, and people questioning a lot of things. So I've been seeing a great awakening in that way.
I have too, and I'm like, am I attracting everyone that believes what I believe, or did the world suddenly shift? Like, yeah, I can't quite get it's interesting. Well, we're going to talk about all of this and more, but I think first we want to go to a quick video from our sponsor. That was for my countdown 2025 coming up, y'all. We're going to be talking about, Scott and I are going to talk about 2025 for all 12 signs today, by the way. We're going to give each of the 12 signs a little bit of our abilities to predict. But if you want to dive deep and really know what 2025 has for you, may I suggest my Countdown 2025 webinar, which is available now. Tickets are available at senseiChristopher.com. This is my biggest webinar of the year. It's on January 11th, right? Is that right? I'm getting my days confused. But it's a Saturday. It's 2.5 hours. And in this webinar, I will dive deep for all 12 signs like we do today, but get real specific on dates, emergency exits, goals that you want to have. Basically, I like giving my subscribers and the people who attend a nice map of how to get, through the poison forest and to the treasure of the year. So it's going to be a wonky year. We're going to talk about that in a moment. But if you really want to get ahead on it, you can also not watch it on the live date and watch it later. It's available for you. Go to SenseiChristopher.com. Tickets on sale now. And there's live chatting. It's a community thing. It's really a fun time. I'll send you some free tickets, Scott.
Sounds great. Sounds amazing.
Oh, thanks, brother. So let's dive in. Let's start with 2024 real quick, man. Like, just a quick synopsis. Like, in your psychic third eye opinion, what was really the key arc or the key learning of 2024?
Purging.
Ooh, yeah.
Purging, and both intellectually, spiritually, emotionally, physically, so, and even with that purge, like then we're called to like rearrange, things in our lives. So we purge and we start rearranging and realizing this doesn't fit here. Now I think a lot of people have this empty space, and I think that's where the optimism is coming from. So much space now to put new things in. So massive purging. For sure. What about you?
And what were people purging? I mean, specifically.
Relationships. I've seen a lot of relationships purging, right? Divorces. There's been a lot of divorces and ending of long-term relationships I've seen in 2024. Even relationships with family members. I've seen family members like with moms and sons and daughters and all that stuff taking a step back, and as mentors, it's hard for us to say that we have to put a wedge between family members, but there needs to be a temporary, placement of such so we can regroup and focus on self-love. So self-love has been a huge thing. So relationships, I've seen a lot of career changes, right? So I'd say across the board and all the more important dynamics, I've seen a lot of purging with a lot of my clients.
Well, I mean, the astrology shows the same thing, man. Like Saturn in Pisces is about taking responsibility, Saturn, for our karma, Pisces. And what we were purging was, in the first half of the year, we were purging our issues with ourself. Like letting ourselves down, not being there for ourselves, whatever your karmic thing was. And then as we went into the summer, and Unite the Light and stuff into the fall, it was about ending patterns in your life that were maybe reflections or a result of those bad habits with yourself. So yeah, again, purging. I really feel like spiritually healing was the theme of 2024. And when I say spiritually healing, I mean since Atlantis. I mean, I don't think, you can't tell me that, when we were fighting like wars in Rome, we were thinking about past lives and clearing karma. Like, you don't see anything about karma or past lives in any of the texts or, literature in the last 2,000 years. So this is the first time I think ever that we're talking about it, as a human race. All right. Well, with that said, let's shift gears then to 2025. What's the difference? What does your third eye say about 2025? What are the themes you're seeing ahead?
Well, I've been saying like tangible manifestation and movement, right? So like 2024 is like purge movement and purging that way and purge. And so 2025, so, there will be a lot of people moving, relocating, and we'll get to that per sign too. And a lot of, I see a lot of financial increases for even economically, but also individually. So I do see things going well financially for 2025 for a lot of people too, and big changes with that. So, and relationships that needed to be solidified will be solidified. So if people are looking to tie the knot, they will, right? And so, so I see a huge tangible manifestations, those careers, those projects coming to pass. And it's funny, my dad has been sitting on this clock business thing, and all of a sudden he's got this, I'm going to do this. This is time. I've been sitting on it for too long. And, that's the Capricorn in him, right? So now he's determined, he's feeling this push. So, and I've been seeing a lot of that with other people as well, with their new projects and, changing careers or expanding their careers. So a huge expansion,
That's perfect. What do you see on a global front, like with Trump and,
that's different.
probe hovering over the East Coast?
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of political strife in 2025. I'm going to see some more riots. I'm seeing, potentially another war, right? There's going to be a lot of misinformation and truth at the same time. So it's going to be very, very clear that we're getting two pieces of information in front of our faces. And so I think there's going to be a lot of political strife, of course, not because I think that's because of Trump. I just think it's just, we're evolving. There's going to be a lot of people outspoken this year. I see more fires for some reason. It's funny, last week,
fires, like Hawaii,
like Hawaii to fire, right? And I saw, it's funny, last week I said, I see Elon under fire, then 2025, and then Cybertruck caught on fire yesterday. So just a lot of things of that nature. But I think we're all gonna be so used to this by now that it's just gonna kind of roll off our backs, and but for the most part, the economy will be secured for a lot of people and getting a lot better too. But politically, in that sense, it's gonna be kind of rough.
Interesting. Well, the astrology is compelling. I'm going to keep it simple to a few themes, and again, go to the countdown 2025 if you guys want to dive deep. But first of all, Saturn moves into Aries. That's a big deal. Saturn is our control, and Aries is our ego energy. Neptune moves into Aries. Now, the last time Neptune was in Aries was 1862 to 1875. This is the American Civil War. The rise of new spiritual movements, new cults came up during that time. There's themes of impulsiveness, creativity, quest for a new start, quest for a new beginning, reflecting the pioneering energy of Aries and the ability to move forward. So the thing about it is Saturn and Neptune and Pisces have been sort of like wishy-washy. You go to rehab, you come out, you slip back in. You know what I mean? Like, it's sort of, it's not necessarily, but Saturn and Neptune and Aries is like, now, go, do it, now. And I think I think intuition, the spirit is constantly speaking in your ear with Neptune Aries, like, now's the time, go for it, seize the day. There's a lot of carpe diem sort of energy. So I think if there is stress, amongst the people, this will put a fire under their astro, and they're going to, I think, stand up. But I don't think that's going to, I don't intuit that there's going to be problems with the public at all. I don't, with each other like we did, in the last.
No. This is all just random events going on. I feel like there's gonna be a lot of that fire in a sense. But no, the public could kind of be observing this time. You see what's going on? Do we do this? So I do feel a more collective sense when it comes to, general collective in this time around for sure. That's why I feel like they'll just be oh, we've been there before, kind of, but I feel like the government really trying to grab hold in 2025, of chaos. And there will be, of course, repercussions of this, but we're all going to see through it. And I think collectively we will be very much we see what's going on now, so that's the positive part of it for me.
Government or deep state? I don't know. So the other aspect of astrologically is that the North Node moves into Pisces for the first time in 18 years. and the south node moves in Virgo. Now, the interesting thing about that is it's interesting because Saturn and Neptune just moved out of Pisces and into Aries, and the node just moved out of Aries into Pisces. So, you got my chocolate and my peanut butter, my peanut butter, my chocolate. But the interesting thing about that is, to me, the North Node in Pisces indicates it is time to now move forward with your spiritual story that you were born to live.
Right.
And I it's funny, but I always knew mine. I don't know about you, but I've known it's been the same damn story since I was 18.
Yeah.
But I thought it would happen at age 19.
Right.
and it's like, oh no, it's way past your 40s, dude.
Right.
But that North Node in Pisces does mean a lot of fated things. Fated as in the Earth was destined for this, the Earth was destined for that, such as extraterrestrials coming and officially landing. The South Node in Virgo, though, is going to be a little rocky because ultimately Virgo is what we call reality, and the South Node is saying, no, it's not reality anymore. And it's kind of like a paradox for humans. Like, what do you mean it's not reality? Well, we used to live that reality. We're not going to anymore. So there's this constant denial of reality, I think, and the potential for kind of going off, into delusion with the North Node in Pisces as well. So that's going to be an interesting thing. And the last thing we'll put astrologically is Uranus moves into Gemini for the first time since World War II. And I think this is going to be a huge acceleration of AI, technology, even digital coin looks like it's going to stay strong. I think technology is going to give humankind, a real run for their money.
I wrote down in my notes too, like crypto being a peak of 2025. Like it's gonna, like, crypto's gonna be huge in 2025. So definitely with digital currency, I can concur on that too.
I will say, I'm an eternal optimist. I know it's going to be hell, but I'm going to be smiling the whole time as the world's on fire. I mean, because I feel it just strongly that it ends all in our favor.
Right.
Maybe I'm on a different timeline. Some people are on one that's things are going bad, but
the things that burn need to burn, right? So in order for things to move on, there's got to be a breakdown to break through, right? So whatever is like happening needs to happen to disseminate what we need to see and learn, but also to eradicate the things that maybe underneath it all has been kind of stifling us as a collective. So it might look tense, but at the same time, it's getting rid of the things that we no longer need any longer. So I think that's those of us will see that.
With Saturn and Aries, I agree. I mean, Saturn and Aries is, again, Saturn and Pisces is like, well, that's just the way the world is. It's screwed up. Saturn and Aries is like, me, damn it, let's change this. I think people are not going to. They're going to do something about it for the first. for the first time in my entire life, frankly. I'm like, why won't people do something about it? Because you'll talk to intellectuals and like, yeah, that's the way the world is. Why are we accepting it this way? Like, why?
Right.
I think now there's going to be a lot of friction in that department.
I've been feeling that for the past couple of months about like, why can I stand up and say something now? No one's saying anything about it. We need to start saying things about it. So I've been psychically picking up on that months ago about having to take a stand. And there's going to be people that are not going to get it right. There's going to be people that are going to do that, and it's not going to come to be the best way possible. But in the collective, it's a good push for that for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny too. I found a lot of people are deflated. Like, did Rob Reiner leave the country? Did Barbara Streisand leave the country? All these people that were saying, on Twitter, they're leaving the country. They did. It was it's almost like that whole energy was deflated.
Yeah.
And I really feel psychically, and let's go into the signs after this, that we have problems in this world with big business, ultimately corporations that have swooped in and taken control. The industrial media complex, for instance, that sort of thing. I honestly feel that, where we were fighting with each other since 2020, like citizens on social media, I feel like it's going to be like Citizens United. Like, citizens going to be like, WTF, what the hell is going on in the world? I think putting their foot down and really calling out these weird things. And, again, we talked about the probes last time on our show, but still feels really weird. Feels, outside.
100%. But yeah, I think that many people, like I said before, that's why we're going to kind of go like this, because we'll realize we're kind of being played with too here, and so we're just going to kind of sit back and have some popcorn. But like as I said, we'll be so busy with the movement in our own individual lives as we will find out what free sign right now. And so that a lot of this will just be like, well, it needs to be. We'll have that sense of peace to it. So that to me is a wonderful part of our evolution and awakening, is that we can actually see it for what it is now, so finally, because that means we all can kind of get along a little bit too. But,
everyone I meet in the United States is like a cynic, like, no one really. none of us take it, for reals. Well, let's dive into the signs themselves and ultimately talk about. I'm going to cover for all 12 signs. We're going to do each of the 12 signs. We're going to start with Aries, and I'll lay out some of the astrology as a foundation, and I'll have a question for you, Scott, too. So let's start with Aries. So the thing about Aries is they're about to get a shift load of energy in their signs. Saturn and Neptune both. The North Node was there, but the North Node is a very subtle influence. I mean, it's sort of like a current, like a wind blowing. So there's a wind that stops blowing in that sense, but there's a real strong Saturn saying time to reinvent yourself. So 2025 for Aries looks like it is a huge reinvention, mostly of the way they treat themselves, actually. So, Aries are actually kind of lazy people. And I don't mean that they don't work. I mean that they don't really want to work, and then they force themselves to do it. I don't know if known many, but they like force themselves off the couch. They force themselves to go do it, and they get it done, and they do get it done. So I'm not saying they end up lazy, but they're real hard on themselves. And so I think that this year is about Aries really finding compassion for themselves. And with the North Node in Pisces, again, compassion for self, but also I think Aries are going to reinvent themselves. I don't know if we'll know what they look like until the end of the year, but for the age of Pisces, the Aries were the warriors. They were the fighters. They were the police officers. They were the pushers, the heavy lifters. And we've got robots now. So I think there's going to be a bit of an identity crisis. So I think as long as Aries is flexible with themselves and also with the South Node in Virgo, completely flexible with life just being a mess until it's reorganized. This year for Aries is the renewal, the rebirth of Aries, the rising of the phoenix, if you will. Now, that said, I just want to ask you a question. Do you feel that Aries are going to become more sheep-like, like calmer in the new era? Like, what is this reinvention of strength that you see psychically?
It's just like you said, reinventing, because I kept saying redirecting, because I feel like they're going to recognize that they've been hitting their head on a wall, right, for this year, and that's going to push them into the rebirth or reinvention. So I really feel like they're going to kind of see things what they are and what they were and what they need to be, right? And so I think it's going to be a huge birthing for Aries. I said this a couple months ago too about Aries, that they're going to have a transformation in 2025 in that regard. So I think they might struggle with the loss of things, though. Like maybe, for example, there's a relationship that they could have gone after, but they lost that relationship. There's that regret there, right? But then saying, you know what, next time I shouldn't be lagging around. Next time I should just beat the bullet and bite the bullet and just ask them out, right? So there's gonna be a lot of regret, but at the same time, it's gonna open the doors for you to redirect. So I think it's this positive revamping, like you said, reinventing, recalibration, and so I definitely feel them kind of arising out of the. You said laziness. Like I agree with the laziness part. It's more like I would say lack of confidence. You know what I mean? I think they've lacked their confidence for some time. So I feel their confidence coming back into viewpoint for them, and then just allowing them to redirect.
Well, the astrology says that because Uranus moves out of Taurus into Gemini, and Uranus and Taurus for Aries has been since 2018, building self-worth on new terms. And I don't know if it's confidence. I feel like it's worth, like in the sense of I deserve it, or I'm capable, or I have it in me. But when Uranus goes into Gemini, that means Aries are going to start being outspoken. So if there is, people picketing or whatever, Aries might be in the front of that line, I think.
Agreed.
Putting their foots down. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, because they're finally speaking up now, because they weren't saying what they wanted to say before. It's like they went through this period of being too humble, too passive, and now it's like, boof, now they're going to explode out to be more expressive. So I definitely feel career shifts with a lot of Aries. Change of career, change their perspective in career and home. So I think career and home will be an emphasis, a focal point for most Aries in 2025.
Astrology totally backs that up because, for one, Pluto moved into their house of society, so they're trying to find their place in the new era, and they're not quite sure where it is. Now that we don't need police officers, we've got robots to kill. So, but also, to the home, Jupiter moves into Cancer, their home family foundation. So, yes, around this summer, Aries wanting to replant themselves somewhere more fertile. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's important with collective too, because I've been seeing a lot of people relocating in May, June, including me. I've been seeing like a lot of readings too.
Oh, there's a lot of migration happening right now, and that'd be
Yeah.
a good topic for a show coming up in the future.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we've given Aries a great shot at 2020. Overall, I think this is the rebirth of Aries, and I'm very excited to see what Aries are. I'm very excited to see how they reinvent themselves. I know a lot of Aries getting spiritual all of a sudden too. Whereas before they're like, I don't have an opinion about that. I'm not religious. And now they're like, so tell me about, they're questioning me. Whereas before they didn't give a,
Right.
about
Yeah.
it. So, interesting. All right, let's go into Taurus, my favorite sign. So for Taurus, the Saturn Neptune thing goes into their house of faith, which before the show I was like, like what is that about? But that's the passive around faith. Tauruses are destined. So Tauruses are the builders of the new era. I feel like we're here to build the new era. We're the builders anyways, right? That's what we do. We like to build things, manifest things, businesses, put things together, Legos as a kid. And so Saturn Neptune is going to our 12th house, which means that we are now moving forward with a spiritual agenda we had before birth. So this is a pre-birth. Now it starts for Taurus with having to take real responsibility for their faith. And I think that the first 9 months of the year, Tauruses are, do I have this in me? Can I pull this off? And it's not because of an incapability. It's because you're going to try to pull something off we've never seen before. Like pull off, a rabbit out of the hat. And so I think for Tauruses, there'll be some anxiety around pulling out that rabbit. The North Node in Pisces means that it's go time for Tauruses in society. So Tauruses need to go out with their agenda, their new reputation, karma free, not worried that they're disturbing someone or that they're, we all had karma as Tauruses, like, is it okay if I do this? Okay. Now Taurus is like, move over, this needs to be built kind of thing. But the South Node in Virgo for Tauruses at this time does mean that Tauruses are going to have to let go of some things their heart has been holding on to a little too strong. So if you're like me and coffee or something like that, like Tauruses have to sort of like let go of the rail. You're going to have something new come in later. But I think that moment for Taurus, like, but I want my coffee. So there's going to be a lot of, I think, that sort of mooing and whining. So that said, do you see psychically as Taurus as being a part of the new economy and where things are going? Like classically, we've been all about money, or do you see Tauruses as creators?
Kind of both, actually. I think that's the whole point with Taurus. They've kind of been like this or that in a sense, and doing things they feel like they have to, not because they want to. So I feel like Taurus will be coming from a place of passion in 2025. It's like, you know what? I'm not doing it because I feel like I'm structured to do it this way. I'm like, this is what I want to do. This is how I want to say it. This is how I want to live it. And so I think Taurus will be coming from the heart, in 2025, and that will give them the light that they've kind of been looking for in the right way. Not to be taken advantage of, not to be pulled from every direction, but the fact is I've been living in my light, speaking from my heart now because I want to, then they start becoming more, I would say a focal point in society in the way they need to be. So you hear that, Christopher? So again, it's about doing things because you really want to. And it may be that you're doing something you want to that isn't maybe rendering what you thought would render financially or conditionally, but you're saying to yourself, but I feel full from this. And then that actually will lead to so many other pathways of enlightenment of the self, but also what you could be doing with your own career, hobby, whatever you're trying to, exceed on, and seeing that expanding a lot quicker than it did before. So
The feeling full thing is really resonating with me because there's a lot of things that I just overindulged in that I'm like, meh. I'm just over it now. Like, I'm just like, I'm not into it anymore. Like, and I'm like, wow, I can't believe that. It was like 20 years of you being obsessed with Oreo cookies, and now you can give a shift. I am feeling that, and that's the South Node in Virgo as well. I think Tauruses will be finding love, but they're gonna have to let go of their old definition of love.
Well, and it's also they're going to take their addictive energy because Taurus can be very kind of a compulsive that way and very addicted to things and turn it into expression. So for me, 2025 is coming from the heart with Taurus, expansive careers, finding a purpose, and if they've been living a purpose, really kind of expressing the purpose of what they want to. And I think that can also attract for a lot of Taurusarians relationships. And finances. So it seems like for Taurus, me, it's well-rounded. They could be a peak of financially, a peak of love, a peak of in career. So it feels like it could be a very well-rounded wheel for 2025 and the Taurusarian energy.
Well, Uranus leaves Taurus. It goes back in, but and it goes into Gemini. Now that has been like a freaking jockey on our back as a bull. Like we have just had this thing going, yeah, Uranus forcing us to grow, grow, grow. And we like to take our time, and Uranus like, no time, come on. So we just sort of rush through the city streets of Mexico. But I think that's going to come off of our back. But Uranus moves into our house of finances, which means that I think Tauruses are going to be inventing new values. That's what we do best. Like seeing value in things that people don't necessarily value, and perhaps being a part of the new economy as well.
Well, because you're coming from the heart, right? You're coming from the right place. So you're coming from, if you come from the heart, you're coming from the true place of value, which generates money, right? That's the secret to manifesting money. So you're coming from that value. And I think like, yes, if you're coming from a place that you're saying, I'm doing this because I want to, my heart is in it, you'll start recognizing that's the formula, so, and then you'll hit hard in other areas, right? Instead of just hitting hard because you're doing, like I'm hitting hard because I'm passionate is what I believe in. And so I'm hitting the pavements of what I need to do to get my message across, in your relationships, in your career, whatever the modality is with the Taurus energy.
I feel like Uranus and Taurus made us stronger. So we used to be really worried about our security. Yeah. And now I'm convinced I'm secure, so there's none of that kind of worry energy that we used to have, which is great. We can talk about this forever, but I think we need to move on to other signs. Right. Gemini. Let's do Gemini. So first of all, Gemini's come out of the woodwork. I've never met so many Geminis as I have in the last year. Just like random, like, what's your sign? Gemini. I'm like, another fucking Gemini. Like, I think they were being pushed out with Jupiter. But moving forward for them, this Neptune-Saturn energy is about their place in the world. Geminis have not really made their mark ever because their karma was around the times they tried and failed. So Saturn, Neptune, and Aries is really about, okay, what's your place in the world? Gemini's finding their role in the world. And, this is a world of AI. This is a world where they're not necessarily the only ones that harbor that intellectual potential, right? I think they're going to be outspoken and articulate like they always are. The North Node moving into Pisces means that it is finally time for Geminis to begin your legacy. So legacy in our definition is what you'll be known for, the gifts you give Earth, the mark you leave on the Earth. And so with the South Node in the 4th house, Geminis have got to get over their emotional shift. Like you have got to let it go, flush it out, because it's going to completely distort your ability to plan your future if you're still harboring that your mom didn't, show up at your 5th birthday party or whatever that is. I'm not trying to make fun of Geminis, but they hold on to shit like that a lot. What do you pick up for the gems?
Well, gems are gems, right? So I really feel like even just on the spiritual level, there's gonna be like more of a spiritual awakening for Geminis in 2025, male and female. If Gemini's been questioning their own psychic ability or creative power, that's gonna come to realization like, hey, I kind of am the shit a little bit. I create some good value here. So I see a huge realization for Geminis with that, both male and female, and I think that they're gonna find ways to really kind of own that value. So of course, when they do, there's gonna be a great financial increase for Geminis in that front too, and that also will blend into career as well. I heard stability in relationships. So whatever you're having issues in your relationships, I feel more stability and such, or creating stability in relationships. Not so much a huge peak or marriage in that sense, but more stability in the relationships. But for me, it's really more about the spiritual enlightenment and the spiritual awakening and awareness I'm seeing with Geminis, which can interpret into career, hobby, all those great things.
That's interesting because Uranus has been waking Geminis up to their spirituality since 2018 in Taurus. However, they weren't really awake. It was like, they would be, they'd say something like, oh, that's a coincidence. Like they didn't put the big picture together. And Geminis are funny. They'll be like, nope, this is the way it is. This is the way it is. And all of a sudden they're like, change my mind. It's this way now. And like, I just been arguing for 10 years about it being this way. So I feel like when Uranus crosses into Gemini, there will be this awakening of the Gemini. And with Uranus in Gemini, again, like the last time we had Pluto in this space was the American, Revolution. And it's like, give me liberty or give me death was a Gemini. Like a lot of outspoken Geminis in the American Revolution. So I think, they're going to speak up in the way that only they can.
Yeah, and that's them again finding their own power and creativity and the value of such, and not second guessing it and be more intuitive. Because in order to be so in flow that way, you have to be in tune to the self and not questioning it. And so I really feel a merging of their soul and their psyche with the mentality. So that's going to come across the board. So to me, I can't narrow it down to saying like it's just gonna be career. I think it could be whatever you're focusing on, Geminis, and use your intuition to move forward. You'll find that you're actually expanding in the ways that you want to, but a lot of creative energy, though, is surrounding them. A lot of creative energy.
That's cool.
And that just clarify to a creativity, because it doesn't mean just art form. It means even creative ways that you're doing the things that you're already doing, right?
Creative thinking, poetry,
Right.
being wordsmiths. I mean, to some degree, AI's on your ass, Gemini. You better raise the stake on the planet. You're about to lose your job as the intellects.
Right.
So I think there'll maybe be some of that. And by the way, you were saying money earlier. Yes, Jupiter in Cancer this summer means Geminis get a big self-worth boost, which in about a year after that will turn into abundance and the ability to bring money in.
You hear that, AC?
Wait, she works for us. What are you saying?
Well, AC Chico's in the room, and I've been kind of telling her. She's got Gemini in her too.
We'll give her a raise, Scott. I quit harboring. So that brings us to Cancers. Cancers, interesting about Cancers is that they've been just sort of, those crabs haven't done shift in the last 3 years, really. Like they've been just sitting on the edge of the water, like not moving, not doing anything. And suddenly they're going to be pushed in the water. So Cancers have finally, with Pluto moving out of Capricorn, you're finally being broken of that codependent relationship thing you've always done. I know you still want it, but you know better. And so as a result, Cancers are like, well, if I'm not going to be codependent with this person, I guess I'll get a job, or I guess I'll go make my mark. A lot of Cancers have always tried to be helpful, but not necessarily trying to like leave their mark from their talent. So Saturn and Neptune in their 10th house of career means that Cancers are going to leave their mark. And maybe it's that, people are suffering. People didn't, purge this last year, and maybe Cancers are to the rescue. But I feel like Cancers are going to reinvent themselves in a lot of ways. Now, it begins the first 6 months with self-discipline, which means Cancers are going to want to fall into their old emotional patterns, and they're going to have to shake themselves out of it and get back on track a lot. I think there's a lot of picking up and putting back kind of stuff. The North Node in Pisces does mean that Cancers are about to live their life purpose, but the South Node in Virgo means Cancers, you've got to get out of your mind. Like, Cancers will overcomplicate with Virgo in their third house. They overcomplicate things and they make it, more complicated than it needs to be when their feelings would have told them right away. So they have to end the cycling of their thoughts, feelings. So a lot, Cancers that are spinning have got to stop spinning.
Yeah, and I'm going to say this too, like for Cancers, make sure you understand what your rising is, because it's going to have to also play along with your sun. Because I just been feeling with Cancers pushed for independence, or pushed to independence, or pushed into independence. And so that means, I think, if there's any kind of codependency in relationships, or codependency on any type of conditional stagnicity, or things that have been creating stagnant energy, are going to be kind of removed from you. So that's going to push you into be more independent this year. And I agree, it's kind of like two-parter. Like the first half of 2025 will be pushed into independence, and the second half will be, depending on whether you're open to that change, of actually really using your voice and being a trailblazer, actually. So there could be a huge dichotomy this year. And so I think too, the emphasis with Cancer energies will be focusing on home. House and home, foundation, even both in the figurative sense and the literal sense. So get your home in order in Cancer this year. If it's a family, get your family in order. And it's finding your value within those things, and putting your value into the essence of home, and understanding what your positions and roles really are. That's going to be very important this year. And I also feel like getting out of bondage energy too. So if you take what the first half of 2025 is, and using your rising as a way to gauge where you're at with this, you probably feel like you're less in bondage, less stuck, and more open to new relationships coming through, new support, and being a better role of support. So those who have been overly supportive, that's going to stop. And those who've been being supported too much, that's going to stop too. But understand, it would be very, very in your benefit to be grabbing on to independence and expressing that value, accurately to where you wish and intend. You know, because I pulled some cards in Cancer because it felt scattered to me. So, you know, the Eight of Wands is kind of being bound and stuck. Four of Wands is about home and foundation, right? Page of Cups is having a new message, right? And Ace of Swords being firm in your independence, your emotional positionings. So there's a huge dynamic shift with Cancer. So be open to this, because, you know, I agree with you, Christopher. Cancers have been kind of, you know, stuck in a rhythm, you know, for too long, you know, and not expanding.
Way too stuck. I mean, you know, Pluto and Aquarius, first of all, they have Aquarius in the house of sex and personal boundaries. So, you know, Cancers are always freaks in the sheets, you know, like, and, but I don't think they've been really truly intimate. I think Cancers have always been there for the other, but they haven't let the other care for them. So even though they seem close, they're not. And so I think Pluto and Aquarius is going to really make them a bit vulnerable. And it's also that independence as well that you were talking about. So it'll be interesting. Now, Jupiter goes into Cancer this summer. So Cancer's going to like take a super pellet. Remember Pac-Man when you like eat the pellet and turn big? Yeah. Cancers are about to get, they're about to get pretty big. And I also kind of feel too that, you know, the world will have people who didn't do their homework, and Cancers are going to really be in need, like really be in need for, you know, whether it's a stranger in the grocery store or a relative. Those talents have to move away from the codependent relationship and towards the people that really need it. Yeah.
And I want to say this too, because, you know, the Cancers have provided a lot of support for those who've needed it too. So in a sense, like helping people with their karmic journey. So there needs to be people who are there to support while people are evolving. So a lot of Cancerians are there for that as well. But also there's been a flip side of Cancers who've been not doing their own karmic work too. So I think those who've been supportive of people will have that support. You know, and then those who've been relying on support will find their independence of supporting themselves. So either way, it's a beautiful breakthrough.
Yeah, Cancers are like, the moon moves every 28 days, and Cancers are like, I'm stuck on the merry-go-round. Here I am again. Hi, Grandma. You know, it's just like they sort of are okay being on that circle merry-go-round, and the universe is going to say no more of that shift. All right, so let's move on to one of my other favorites, Leos. Now for Leos, not as exciting. Well, first of all, Saturn in Pisces is in Leo's 8th house, so Leos have had to really draw some lines in themselves and man or woman up when it comes to drawing the line. And so I think in the last couple of years for Leos, it's been difficult. I think Leos now with Saturn, Neptune, and Aries, really, now they're over their infractions of boundaries and whatnot. Now they're ready to get to business. So I think Leos are going to be believing in themselves in a way, sort of like the rebirth of the king, or if you want to go like the lion's paw when it pulled out the thorn, you could say for Leos, the thorn is being pulled out. And they're realizing, oh, I am king, queen of the jungle. I am the one that can possibly make this happen. With the North Node in Pisces, that means that Leos and Leo risings ultimately have to move forward with the appropriate boundaries for success. So, you know, if you don't make the boundary, you're not going to be successful, period. There's no more, you can't get away with it anymore, Leo. Leos can always charm their way out of it. The South Node in Virgo, though, does mean that Leos are no longer valuable for the reasons they used to be. And that's going to be difficult. So it's like, nope, it's not your Instagram following that we like you. It's not because you've got great hair. You know, like these other ways of feeling valued in the world, it's have to be completely reinvented. So be open to that reinvention, I think, for the Leos. But Leos are moving towards their purpose now, and also a real meaning, kind of like the king or the queen having a vision for their future. Whereas before I felt like they were just sort of, you know, wallowing.
Yeah, for me, I feel, you know, Leos are being, you know, forced into mutual connections, not conditional connections, not connections because they are being revered, not connections because this is what they need from somebody, forcing connections that are authentic. And I see a huge focus on relationships for Leos in 2025, but meaningful ones, not ones because they're surfacely, you know, appealing, but because there's heart behind it. I also see them taking more of a supportive role in 2025 too, and understand what it's like to be a supportive role and not having to be the domineering energy they're usually used to being, and finding loyalty in a sense of being supportive and understanding that, you know, they don't have to shine in moments, that being supportive is part of the experience for them that they also enjoy. So it's almost like I feel like Leo's becoming more well-rounded in that sense. And being, even on the love aspect, being attracted to people they never thought they'd be attracted to before, which will create a new dynamic that they wouldn't necessarily experience before in a relationship. So I think relationships and home is huge for Leos. I was going to say for egos, huge for Leos in 2025. 2025, and I feel like their ego is going to take a backseat this time around. They're going to be coming more from the heart too. So yeah, I think it's a great time for Leos and relationships and connections and home and family and all that great stuff.
Astrology backs that up. Pluto and Aquarius is in the house of relationships, mostly focused on them. You know what's interesting? When I do past life readings, I can see a person was a king or a queen in a past life. Usually the next life after being king or queen, they just sit back. They're like, even if it's a man, he's like, I'm just behind my woman. I don't want to do any, like they just sort of take a life off after having that sort of high responsibility. And it feels like Leos are kind of in that space now. Like, you know, they sowed their oats, they went chasing after the gold, they're tired in that sense. Now they want to enjoy. So very interesting about that. And with the North Node in Pisces, I'll just point out too, I think Leos are also going to allow love in. So part of those new boundaries are receiving love. I mean, it's different than attention, love, you know?
Right. Yeah, and it's not just like love and like romance, but like love from like a brother, or love from a friend, or love from someone that's just even around their environment. I feel that allowance of love, and so I've been saying to you a lot too before that I feel like there's going to be a flip flopping between Leos and Aquas. Like Aquas are taking the role of Leos, and Leos are taking the role of Aquas. So I feel even emerging of a Leo and Aqua friendships in 2025 too. So I feel like there's going to be a understanding of the two opposite signs.
Interesting. Well, comment on Aqua. I'm feeling closer to Aquas than I ever have in my life, except you, of course. But
we're so distant, so far apart.
Okay, excellent. So that brings us to the Virgos.
Okay. Why do you think? Why do you think? Just like before, like why do you think there's been more like an Aqua energy around you?
I'm attracting Aquas like flies right now. I mean,
what do you think though? What do you feel?
Well, I'm a Leo rising, so they're really helping me. They're actually really helping me.
We are.
Yeah, they are. Not you, but yeah, I'm kidding. I love you. I love you, brother. Yeah. No, they are helping. But also, I think with Pluto in Aquarius, and we're jumping ahead to Aqua here, just as a weird schism, guys. I think Aquas are a lot more courageous. They were hiding, they were ghosting, and Pluto's giving them some genitals, so to speak, like just it's Scorpio, Pluto. So like suddenly Aquas are like, okay, I'm badass. They've got this badass kind of energy, which is allowing them to kind of, we'll talk more about them in a minute, but yeah. Okay, so Virgos. For Virgos are not, I think okay, how do I put this? You're going to be uncomfortable. Saturn, Neptune, and Aries is your own trust issues. And, Virgos can think of 1,000 things that can go wrong. And God's like, I don't care, get in the pool. So I think that it's this first half of the year for Virgos will be probably putting yourself out there in a way you never have. It's probably from taking risk. It's not like from the boogeyman or your childhood or any of that other stuff. It's that you want something in your heart. That was Pluto and Capricorn. Your heart wants something. And so now you're going to have to really jump in. You're going to have to try. So I think, Virgos will be uncomfortable to some degree in that regard. With the North Node of Pisces, though, I think Virgos are finally going to have some amazing relationships. They are going to move into partnerships and business. They're just not the old maid anymore. They're not the organizers. They've reinvented themselves as not being the complete caretakers in relationships anymore. And for the first time in their whole life, I imagine, they're going to enjoy relationships much more than they have. Now, this does mean, though, with the South Node in their sign, their ego is going to go through a beating. Not a beating in the sense of from the public, but just oops, I didn't mean to do that. Oh, geez, excuse me for that. Like your ego is just outdated. It's based on the old worrywart you. And so your ego is going to be firing off left and right this year. And you're going to have to sort of catch it in motion and stop it. So you could say like Cold War infrastructure still in the ego has to be dismantled for Virgos.
It's interesting as being Virgo rising, so I can relate. So whatever I say, if it's bad, I'm talking to myself too, but it's nothing bad here. But I really feel that for Virgos, the validation need, whether it be, I need validation through science, or I need validation through this person, I need to calculate everything I need to calculate. The need for that's going to dissipate. And so I do find there is going to be more of again, here's another sign coming from the heart again, and making the heart and your intuition the validation. So less of external validations, less of scientific data as validation, more about, I feel this is what's validating for me. So I'm speaking up regardless of what people say or do any longer. So I do get a sense of not caring in that regard, which will open up their heart chakra too, to where, yes, and I think that will lead to great relationships, but I also see peaking in career. in 2025 for Virgos. And being outspoken, which will actually benefit the careers, getting that promotion, or if they are speakers and they're speaking the message that people need to hear now, and almost because they've been validating their heart now, that they're being validated by their how they're expressing themselves in the heart. So because I find a lot of Virgos need validation through like external sources, whatever it may be, and I feel like that dissipates in a sense too.
Oh, that's interesting.
So career shifts, career changes, peaks of the career, but also falling more into your intuitive, not rational side to themselves, which comes from the heart.
The astrology says exactly that. I mean, Jupiter's in their house. Jupiter's in their house of career, so there will be a slingshot. Virgos are being slingshot into new places in the world. Now that we have AI, it just kind of displaces you like Aries were displaced by robots, So that's definitely going to happen. The North Node in Pisces is following the intuition aspect of it. And when you were speaking to the heart, Pluto left their heart. Like Pluto was like tearing through their heart for 15 years. And here's an interesting thing about Virgo. Aquarius for them, Pluto and Aquarius, is lifestyle. So Virgos have to build the new Aquarius reality. They're going to be the builders of it. It starts with how they live in their body first, and that's where they are now. But Virgos will actually show us how to do the new age.
That's great. And it's interesting because a lot of people around me include, like, I'm Aqua Virgo rising, but my partner's Aquarius double Virgo, right? And then a lot of other people are Aquarius Virgo or Virgo Aquarius combos. I've been tracking a lot of Aqua Virgo combos like myself too around me lately.
It's a hall of mirrors of Scott.
Oh, please. That makes me want to vomit. I can't even stand and hear myself talk. I don't want to see more of me around.
I mean, yeah, we'll talk about that in another show, but I've been attracting so many Christophers, Kristins. It's like, Jesus.
I know.
No, Christ, not Chris. Yeah. Okay, so Libras, oh man, I'm excited for the Libras. I'm excited. Now, a lot of people say I don't like Libras. It's not true. You did piss me off a few times, which is hard to do, lots of arrows. But the truth is that Libras were so, like Cancers, they're in that codependent, surrender themselves, martyr themselves, give it all away and then complain that no one cares about them like the way they care about others. That's all over now, thank God. The South Node's moving out of their house of ego, so they've really been humbled in their own way. But Saturn and Neptune in Aries is relationships. So Libras are about to reinvent relationships. When you're talking about relationship changes, Libras rule relationships. They're about to redefine what a relationship is. So I think we're going to find, and we're seeing it already with the younger generation where they're like poly and all this other stuff. Libras are like finding a way to make relationships work first with themselves. So I think it'll be very uncomfortable until the summer, again, with that first Saturn Neptune entry. But with the North Node in Pisces, Libras are going to find their place in life. Like Libras are needed. They're like kind of lubricant that God puts in there, between the frictions. And so that lubrication is being moved to other places. So I think Libras are going to have changes of job, work, where they live. They'll be part of the migrators, that sort of thing too. And with the South Node in Virgo, here's the thing. You've got to you just can no longer surrender to your fear anymore. So your fear will make you look silly. I mean, You will embarrass yourself. You just cannot go there anymore and let yourself spook yourself anymore. So a lot of shadow boxing for Libras, but they're shadows. They're not real.
Right. And I feel too, recognition, I feel like, is a word I feel for Libras in 2025 first part. Like realizing, I've kind of been a little delusional in what I was seeing things before, or I've been blaming other people too much, and maybe being too overly critical about other people because I've just been so upset that I haven't been doing for myself. So I feel like there's a lot of realization for Libras in the first part of 2025, which is great because then they get their head out of the clouds in a sense, And I feel like this is where there's going to be a huge bursting of creativity for them. And again, when I say creativity, it doesn't just mean art, it means like just the way you're going about, things in life. It might even mean there's fertility. Maybe there's a start a family, in 2025, and there's a new child. If you're trying to have a child, you might start realizing you're building your family in 2025. So there's more of a nurturing component coming from Libras in 2025 too, supportive but independent. So there's a duality there. And with new beginnings, I feel like new beginnings could be across the board too. So with other signs, like it's just this. Although I feel the foundation is with relationships in a peak week with Libras. I think it could be across the board as far as the expansive Libras. But the most important thing is being beside yourself and recognizing that, I've kind of just been kind of whining and complaining about things, but now I'm taking charge of that. So there's a breakthrough in that sense for Libras,
Yeah, and Pluto and Aquarius is in their house of self-love and love. So they're raising the vibration of what self-love is, which is interesting. But think of it this way, like, John Kerry, who is like a diplomat for the United States. Imagine him being replaced by Obama. Like, Libras are going to come out fiery and charismatic as diplomats. They're not going to be this hands behind their back. What do you say? What do you say? They're going to be running the show. Oh, by the way, Jimmy Carter, may he rest in peace and reincarnate.
Yeah.
My favorite Libra in the whole world ever, actually. Jimmy Carter passed away recently at 100.
Yeah.
So awesome, man. But he was a humble man. He's doing Habitat for Humanity. I think the new Libra would be like, no, I'll be in the trailer. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, they're not necessarily going to sacrifice it all, and they're going to see their own star power. I think in their negotiations, I think they always put themselves to the side, but they'll be a part of that power now.
Yeah, and I think that's too, like, why the woe is me energy I feel like they went through for a little bit of time. I think that's what's pushed them into this state, of that. And so, because I think Libras were having high expectations of things, and they didn't apply it internally. So now they can apply it more to themselves and realize, oh, I'm not going to rely on somebody else to be what I think we need to be. It's all for me. And, but yeah, it's great new beginning. It's like the Fool card energy, like a new beginning, new start, new chapter. And Ace of Cups of all fertility and maybe gathering the family energy together.
Yeah, they were overly idealistic with stuff like fairness and justice. It's like, truth is, the mob usually gets away with it. Like, what? Like Libras. It's like, but now I think Libras can accept that. They're like, yeah, theirs been tilted this way for a long time, but in 1,000 years, it's like expanding the scale. It'll be fair in 1,000 years, but not necessarily in this nano moment right now. Yeah. All right, so that brings us to the Scorpios. I have mixed feelings about this. First of all, I think for Scorpio, Saturn and Neptune in Aries is their daily life. So Scorpios have signed themselves up for warfare, conflict. Their whole life has been a struggle by their design. And so I think for Scorpios, this is the reconstruction of reality not being hard. It doesn't have to be hard. You made it hard. I know that's what we call self-stinging Scorpios. They make it hard. They sting themselves. So I think Scorpios will face any health issues. So if you've been, sacrificing your body, your health, Mayday. You're out of time. You have to take care of yourself now and put yourself first. But this is really about Scorpios not being the martyr, not being the police officer, not being the one that has to speak up. Like, they're changing their role in reality. Now, the North Node in Pisces means that it's time for true love. I mean, they've always had true love. Their heart's been broken. Most of their true love has been based on karma, so their heart's been broken. But now it's really time for Scorpios to get stars in their eyes and go, racing after those dreams, those wild ideas. And Scorpios are brilliant in the sense of, because they understand space and time so well, when they create something, it's almost like a piece of sushi. It's just perfect. Now, the South Node of Virgo means that you got to let go of your old reputation. And to some degree, you just sort of burrow yourself in, in the office, or burrow yourself in to power here or power there. And so your social powers are being dismissed. So you may have a lot of moments where you feel powerless in the world, but it's because you are changing how you obtain power. And the change is that you're chasing after your heart first, not being a warden of the state.
I like that, because the Scorpios, like, they're just saying, like, fuck it, I'm going, you're doing it. I'm gonna do what I want to do. I want to move forward in the way I want to see, experience life. And so, kind of coming out of the hermit energy, kind of coming out of this isolation period, and kind of like really dominating 2025 in their own right. I agree with family and house and home and all that great stuff, and elevating relationships and kind of allowing themselves to see life in a sense of like connectivity and community too. So I definitely feel a huge expansion with that, but also creatively. I don't know. I've said this even months ago too about Scorpios kind of come into this very creative essence of energy too, and that might even be literally art, or just find ways to be creative even with what they're doing with their work, or even a hobby. So actual creativity, I feel, giving birth to Scorpios. I really feel them owning it, like across the board, actually. So not just relationships, careers, just like they're coming through like diva and devo. So yeah, it's going to be a great fiery year for Scorpios for sure.
Yeah. I mean, Uranus moving into Gemini means that Scorpios are going to have to change their boundaries. So they're not going to like that, and Scorpios actually only let you in so much. And
Right.
God Universe is gonna be like, nope, sorry, that's over. You can't half-ass it anymore. But the North Node in Pisces is literally creativity. So you hit it right on the mark. Like it's time for them to be creative. And honestly, the world's a fucking mess. We need Scorpios to go out there and reorganize it a bit with their boundaries and their good moral.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So who's that? Who's
All right,
next?
so let's move on to Sagittarius.
Okay.
So for the Sagittarians, I'm very excited about this because Sagittarians with Saturn and Neptune and Aries are focusing on love. And specifically in the first half of this year, self-love. Now, Sagittarius look like they love themselves because they're bubbly and fun and they get along with everyone. They speak 20 languages, a little bit of every language, But the truth of the matter is that their heart is often, they're putting themselves aside to be that ambassador, to be that tour guide, to be that teacher, to be that bridge of humanity. So Sagittarius are at a point now where it's like, no, you have to have as much fun as everyone else. You have to love yourself and put yourself first as well. It's cool that you respect all the world cultures and all the different, types of humans. That's really cool. But what's cool about you? What's unique about you? So I think Sagittarius are going to feel a little uncomfortable in the sense that the universe is forcing them to choose their favorite. It's kind of like if they're in an office, party or something, and what do you want? And the Sagittarius will be like, no, whatever you want. What's good for the group? And the boss this year will be like, no, what do you want? What do you want? So I think there'll be a lot of discomfort there. The North Node in Pisces does mean that Sagittarius are building a new home. And building a new home means, every Sag came from a karmic home. I mean, we all come from karmic homes, but for Sagittarius, their home, their family, their nuclear family, whatever it was just riddled with their karma. And so it's been cleaned out. However, they don't necessarily know how to emotionally ground themselves. Sagittarius are used to running away, traveling away, doing other stuff, like being gone in a moment instead of sitting there in the discomfort. They're really grounding themselves now. They're really starting to nurture themselves. And with the South Node in Virgo, it means they're going to be pulling away from certain roles in society and certain careers. So Sagittarius will be retiring, changing, no longer making decisions based on what they used to make decisions on, and moving their power and their authority to somewhere else. So if you were the authority of this Sag, not anymore. That'll be the hard part, is letting go of that and that temporary feeling of, not having power in the in-between. What do you pick up for Sagittarius, Scott? Oh, he's muted.
Oh, am I here? Okay.
We're back.
Okay. Yeah, I just feel like there's a realization that they have and always had what they needed, like resource-wise, like intellectually, spiritually, the tools that they've had. And I think they're starting to recognize that maybe they haven't been utilizing all those tools, right? And so, and I definitely feel like that will be, I would say expressed within relationships too, but also like in creativity. So I feel like even just like Scorpios, a burst of creativity in, affecting their work in a positive sense. But they're also showing me with even home and house. And so they might decide to redecorate their home or house or change their appearance somehow. So I do feel a new expression coming along and them realizing, I've had these skills and talents I never quite expressed before. So I'm going to put them into good use, either to make some good, money from that or turn it to a hobby. So it feels very well-rounded to me in that sense. So I think to me, it's more about, again, house and home is kind of the foundation for them, but creativity too, which can be interpreted into career. But here's another one of those signs I feel are very well-rounded shifting with them. But also, like you said before, not being so supportive, but kind of being more head-on in their decision makings. But that's because they recognize their skill sets and talents. So I think it's going to be a very flowy here, I would say, for Sags, but like very like a huge identity. Like they know their identity, but they almost like they're coasting in a good way. Like I don't feel coasting means or flowy means that you're not progressing movement, but you just feel like things are just moving in flow and understand what that flow is without having to try to do anything or appease anybody else. So that's like a natural rhythm they're going to find.
That's exactly what I was saying. And with the North Node in Pisces, they're settling down, they're creating family. I'm seeing, we're Sagittarius, the joke of it, like a Sagittarius man was that he had a kid in every country, like he tours around, sleeps with them, moves on. And now they're like bringing all the kids home. I see a lot of Sagittarius homemaking and home building Whereas before they were just always on the go, and their home
Right.
was kind of a wreck. Like you walk in there, like Jesus, Now they're building palaces and whatnot. But again, just realize, Sag, you're going to have to let go of your current world power to do this, and you will get new world power in exchange.
Yeah. It's foundation, because that's what they see with the tools all around. They have they always have what they need all at all times, the whole time. But they're able to utilize that to the best of their ability now. So I think that's wonderful for Sag.
Yeah. We'll see less of them because I think they're being more close to family now and less public.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So Capricorns. Now the Cappies, you must be feeling so good with Pluto out of Pluto's. I don't.
Right.
The analogy I want to use is a little dark. I won't use it. But like having Pluto in your sign sucks. Okay. No offense, Aquas. And so I think for one, they're just relieved, right? But in essence, Saturn and Neptune in Aries means that the Aquas. What are we talking about here? We're talking about Capricorns. The Capricorns have got to actually build a new emotional foundation. So Capricorns used to be the rock. They just hold their strong and be the rock and pretty much like make their partners deal with all their emotions was kind of how they always used to do it. Now the universe is saying, no, you need to like give yourself, you build the mountain. You build the mountain, don't climb it.
Yeah. Right.
You nurture yourself. You build the things that you need for your foundation, for your success to happen. And with the North Node in Pisces, I think Capricorns are going to become incredible. It's now time for them to be consultants of the new world. So I think they're going to very quickly move out there in those new economies, right? Where they were sort of tied to corporations and tied to big business and the old, infrastructure. They're like the first for clean power. Like they're going out there now and being advocates. I think you're also going to find that Capricorns are far more spiritual. They're going to be more open about their spirituality than they ever have before, But the South Node in Virgo means everything up until now you were wrong about. So there's a lot of, you don't have to feel this way to respond to it, but everything you believed is no longer applicable. So, the expertise of them is sort of moot, and they're rebuilding that expertise.
Yeah, I also feel like, for 2025, Capricorn's really finding their confidence, in a way, like not kind of like, oh, well, I'm just not good at this, so I'm not good. Oh, I don't have the. They're going to kind of break the barriers of that too. And I really feel like for a lot of Capricorns, it'll be a great financial year too. So if you've been struggling financially, I feel like you'll find your financial value and stability in 2025 as well. And you'll stop saying, well, I couldn't do this because of that. You'll be like, whatever, I'm going forth. I'm pushing myself. It's time to structure this out. And I get the creative energy too with Cappies, but in a sense of there being, I think it's more about thinking outside the box for Capricorns. Not so much creative energy, but it might be creative to them. But thinking outside the box of things that have structured and limited them down. But I feel like that's going to also extend into their financial, arena. So great burst of confidence for Capricorns, I find, in 2025. But like really finding their voice in that sense and stopping the excuses. A lot of the Capricorns in my life are always kind of like, yeah, but I'm not good enough. Yeah, but they're always finding a way to or when they do take charge, they take lead too much, and don't recognize the value they deserve in return. So this kind of like when they do decide to take up, it's too abrasive. So I think they'll find the balance of not being too abrasive when they're taking charge and not too passive when they're not. They'll find a good balance with that in 2025.
They finally calm the F down, with Pluto through their sign and become less bossy, thank God. But I think with Pluto and Aquarius, I feel like in essence, they're realizing that value isn't from a resume. Like that's the big thing for them. Like, oh, I did this, and in 2025 I did that. Now it's like I have this feeling. I mean, I think the key words for Capricorn is the world doesn't know it yet, but right. So it's that you have a value inside yourself that the world doesn't realize is valuable. So the Capricorns that mine that new gold instead of hoarding the old gold, I think are going to be better off.
Yeah, I agree with that.
All right. So that brings us to the awkwards. No, I'm just kidding. The Aquarius.
Yes. Aquarius. I say we're curious. We're very curious people. Aquariuses. Or in my case, Aquarius. I'm Aquarius.
Well, Aquariuses have been, because Aquarius has been the freaks.
Aquarius, I said. You missed it. I said Aquarius.
Yeah, no, the Aquarians have been, well, I mean, we haven't had Age of Aquarius in 26,000 years. So, like, the world has not played your song at the wedding for 26,000 fucking years. So, no wonder you're awkward and ghosting and all these types of things have been happening, right? So, what happened is that your mind, like Aquariuses have been very combative, okay? Their mind has been very combative. It's because they're sort of like playing out the fight of what society will say to them before society can say it. So Aquas have got to develop a completely new mental approach about, finding the answer quickly, communicating it quickly, and not getting caught up in the argument of things. With the North Node in Pisces, it does mean it's time for Aquas to get out in the market, start making money. And here's the weird thing. Aquariuses are getting pushed in the pool for intimacy. So with the South Node in Virgo, your boundaries aren't going to fly anymore. So you saying no, the universe will be like, no, I insist. So there's going to be a lot of discomfort for Aquariuses, sort of being pushed out on the stage. Excuse me, I'm choking up here over the Aquas. And probably a lot of changes too with intimate relationships and being pushed to get closer.
Yeah, I mean, as an aqua myself, but I really feel just even objectively too. Aquarius we're always there when people need us to be there, and don't appreciate us when we're there when they don't need us. So I think we're going to find that people are appreciating Aquarius when they want us there now. So they're going to start wanting aquas around, and I think that's also our fault too, because we tend to be in isolation a lot of times. It's just kind of like, okay, well, we're humanitarians, we'll do what we need, and so we'll kind of now we're good, isolate. So we are going to be coming out of isolation 2025. I feel it. I definitely locking love in my life too. It's been happening, and we're projecting that 2025. So I see it with other aquas as well. But it is uncomfortable, Christopher. You're right. A lot of us aquas feeling the push to take the lead now because it's been so long, right? And so a lot of us are doing it, but we don't want the spotlight. We don't want attention. But then we're so excited to express our gifts and talents too. So I think that we get misinterpreted either way. But I think there's going to be some more understandings about the aqua vibes and aqua energy. And so, yes, finances are great. That's funny. I just pulled the Ace of Pentacles. It's all about, investments and financing, investing in the self, but also returns and financial growth. So that's a wonderful thing too with aquas and breakthroughs in careers, And so I think it's going to be, of course, a time for us to take the lead, but I think it's going to bring a lot more balance for others. And I think people will be able to appreciate aquas in ways they haven't before. And then we'll recognize that, our natural vibes are leading in the right way.
I used to have this saying that goes back to the very beginning of my first brand, which is we can't have the age of Aquarius without Aquariuses. And now I think we talked about this earlier with Pluto in your sign, you got a little Scorpio genitals. Like aquas are just feeling like they're carrying a big stick, like they're, and so as a result, they're less timid. I'm seeing right away. They also have the ability to block energy more than they ever have before, because they used to sort of be overwhelmed by it and just sort of scatter. Right. Now they're sort of like, no, you shall not cross. They have that kind of energy there. I think for aquas too, with the money thing, the age of you think so. I mean, Aquariuses are so uniquely brilliant. They're so brilliant. And the world hasn't even had a need for those brilliance with our 6th grade television broadcasting, reading levels and things like that. So a lot of the world now is hungry for your brilliance and your innovation. Mm-hmm. So I think that this is exciting aquas as well. So it's really time to get out there and have some fun and do some exciting things we've never seen before.
Yeah, and then someone comments here, aquas have seemed so angry at everyone, defensive. No, I think it's aquas don't like to be misinterpreted, I think. And so we get a lot of pressure from people across the board. And so we don't initially become angry. We tend to lash back, I would say, or we tend to want to explain the truth on things. And so we don't like to be misunderstood. And so I think we've always been misunderstood. So to people, when they misunderstand aquas and we say, no, this is how it is, like, oh, you're angry. It's like, no, we're defending ourselves, right? So I think there'll be less of that for aquas in 2025 because we are allowing ourselves to be in the spotlight. And so people are understanding us better. So yeah. Yeah.
Well, aquas would be like, if the boss is like, should it be red or should it be blue? And the aqua would be like, what is color? It's like, right. I asked red or blue. Like they'll throw in that abstract. But I think now it's like, oh yeah, what is color? Like we're going to go with you down that path.
Right. Yeah.
I'd say you guys have been way defensive. You've been so defensive and overly defensive about not wanting to be, you say misunderstood for yourself, but being the weirdo, being the one, that's pointed out. And so Saturn, Neptune, and Aries is like, okay, time for a whole new mental approach. Reprogram that brain.
But what is it astrologically? Because I feel like You know, even as an Aqua, I've witnessed a lot. Aquas get like a really bad rap for no reason. I feel like people like to dump on Aquas. Is there something
That's just
astrologically
your
bad or
life.
something?
That's your life.
No, not my
No.
life. Because the people appreciate me in mine. I just see a lot with other Aquas that I've seen. People just kind of like pass the blame to Aquas all the time when it's not even their fault sometimes.
I think because you weren't participating, so we blame the person not talking. You know, it's like,
There it is.
you know, it's like, it was like, well, you're being quiet, Scott. What do you think? You know, like they kind of got outed, and it's like, I think, what is color? Like, well, God damn it, you know. So, I think that's, you know, I do think that's changing now. You know what I mean? You guys doing some now? I think we're so bored. I mean, entertainment, everything's been so boring. We've been so dumbed down by media that like Aquas are the interesting ones now. You know, and we want some interest. We want some uniqueness. So you're also the pioneers of individuality. And you know, not apologizing for who you are. That's what I love most about Aquas. They don't
But I
apologize.
also, and then not to be long-winded, Aqua move on. I just think people get uncomfortable when Aquas do stand up and they define it as angry because we haven't before. So it comes with this like intensity when we find do stand up. Like, oh, you're angry. It's like, no, we're actually calling out the truth now. So maybe you're angry, you know? So
It's
this is
very contrary. It's very contrary.
yes.
Very
Yeah.
contrary. I mean, you
Yeah.
know, I see that in your Puerto Rican. You're like, what? You know, like you guys rise up, like,
passionate
and we're all like,
people. We're very
"Whoa, oh." Yeah. So, but I think it's changing. We'll see. Now, here's the
Yeah.
thing. I'll end with this. You got to, the way you talk to yourself, Aqua, is what's most important this year. Like
Yes.
your own beating, your own, like, well, he's probably thinking this, and you know, no, don't go there anymore. Stop that. Stop the, you know, stop this. You know, the world doesn't like us very much. What you just said, like, stop that, because I think the world now is wanting something interesting. So
Yeah, I agree.
we've changed, you know, compared to when you were being made fun of or whatever. All right. All right. So this brings us to Pisces. Oh my God. I had a long conversation with the Pisces last night, who doesn't know anything about astrology or anything. And it was really compelling just to see someone who didn't know. You know, this is the end of the age of Pisces. Okay. So, you know, it started with Christ consciousness, and we're at the end. And so if you're a Pisces alive right now, you're here to run the ball home, like to complete the age of Pisces. And with Saturn and Neptune moving out of Pisces, you're ready. All right. So for Pisces, what does this mean? Making money at your talent, which is really weird, right? But it's time to make money at your talent. The talent you have, no one has, and no one cares to have. And it's weird, but it has a real purpose because Pisces are compassionate. They are so sensitive, they pick up on everybody. So the first like 6-9 months of this year is self-worth, knowing that you have things that no one else has, knowing that you have talents and things that other people don't even try to have. And you saying for yourself, this is valuable because it's rare. And so that's where the real work is, I think, for Pisces, is to claim their self-worth. I think you're going to have a huge energy drop with Saturn leaving your sign. So you might feel extremely lazy and need like a really long break when Saturn first goes into Aries. And I just want to give you permission to take that break because you've been under the whipping post of Saturn. But I also think with the North Node in Pisces, it's time for you. Like, we need the Pisces to come out, show us compassion, show us empathy, show us what Christ consciousness was really about, you know, show us all these things. Now, with the South Node in Virgo, it means that Pisces, kiss your local Pisces, they're going to go. Like, they're moving. They're being reassigned to new places on the earth. They're being reassigned to new relationships. So there's a lot of goodbyes, farewell for nows, relationships that were just always codependent, toxic, just being forced to let go once and for all. And that includes relationships to booze and all types of substances that sometimes Pisces became codependent on. So a lot of relationship endings for Pisces, but this new kind of superhero kind of Pisces coming to the surface and completing the Christ conscious mission.
You know, when I look at Pisces intuitively, it's like they're in this home, and all of a sudden I see the home, and all these two walls just fall down. You know, like they're left like, oh crap, there's a world out there. You know, and so they're definitely, look, the Two of Wands just sitting there too. It's all about exploration, looking beyond the horizon. So it's fun that was there. I really feel like with Pisces, they're going to find a way to, you know, get out of the mundane though, because I feel like they've been in a very mundane routine energy for quite some time, and like requiring this new life, a new breath of energy. I feel like they've been sacrificing sacrificing themselves too much too. And I think through the sacrifice of relationships come to an end, or they're put in a position where they don't have to any longer. And so they're going to have a lot of empty space energetically. And especially when their heart chakra to be like, where do I really passionately want to go? Like, yes, I've done things. I've supported people. Yes, I've kind of done these jobs that have been kind of great financially, but I really haven't been using my voice enough, right? Figuratively and literally. So I think they're going to find this like almost like a lion, like, I'm using my voice. I'm coming out with passion now. And I don't have to be, enabling others to support them, that I can actually lead them by my own independent structure and my own independent of voice and so forth. So I think they're going to find a good balance between independence and how that supports versus just being a supporter, or just having to be very, I would say, extreme in a sense of, with their independent, they only focus on themselves. So I feel a good balance in that sense. So yes, relationships, I definitely were seeing relocations and moves. That's why I was seeing the house, the walls falling down, saying like, you've been here for a long time. It's time to find a different ley line of energy that matches your energy and be more intuitive. That's another part I saw about Pisces, becoming intuitive with their locations and the energy around them. And so yeah, and that would be financially too. That could be also with career, but to me, it's emphasizing home, location, and relationships is the peak of all that change.
Well, the South Node of Virgo is like any relationships for sure. One of our people on the screen here is asking, do you have to mention booze with Pisces every time? Yes, because Pisces were numbing themselves, not just with booze, chocolate, anything, because they were so sensitive. But now they can really own that empath stuff. Every Pisces was born guilty, feeling like a sinner. So they had a lot of purging. They didn't want to feel that. They wanted to escape it. And this is the first time where Pisces can stand out in the wind and not feel knocked over. So yeah, I think that era is over, Sarah. I don't think that's going to be the new Pisces, but it certainly has been since the Civil War, kind of thing. So it's interesting. And there was another point I had, but I can't remember now. I think ultimately, Pisces are going to herald in the Christ consciousness, which is like in the moment. You have to know it's in the moment. Pisces just feels so juicy to be around. I agree that they've been hiding and sort of nesting. And so now the universe is like, they'll find themselves in the place to be, I kind of get this like monk or like Buddha kind of hands behind their back, like very just owning that calm understanding of the universe. So they're going to be the wise men and women.
And remember, this is generalized too. So people I think maybe taking this too personally too. This is very general. It's the essence stuff. So look behind the essence. So perhaps it's not booze. That's Christopher's symbology of just maybe like being too, indulging in things that might be just holding you back in your energy. So let's be more objective on what we're saying here. So, but yeah, I've definitely seen Pisces kind of like limiting their talents and that just find ways to numb and be more comfortable where they're at. So the bursting of creativity, inspiration is definitely going to flow through. So I agree with you on that for sure. Yeah.
One thing about interesting is like Pluto moving into their 12th house for the Aquarius means that Pisces have actually not been as connected to God as they could be.
Right.
Like they're naturally wired, they're hardwired from childhood, but they haven't really been communicating. They haven't really been that conduit. And so I think that the wild frontier for them is multidimensional, ascended masters, angels. Like they're being pushed in that kind of pool. They've all been sort of damaged by Christianity and other major religions in this lifetime. Right. And I think they finally shed all of that off. And they're like, well, I'm going to figure out who God is on my own. So there's a lot of God exploring, I think, for the Pisces, which is exciting.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I was saying, like this intuitive connection, right? That's like intuitive awareness in that sense is definitely something that, of course, is the God energy. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So, all right. Well, that's our wrap up for all 12 signs. We went 90 minutes today, but that's because we care so much about you all and 2025. I do want to put one more plug. Now, this is just the tip of the iceberg, folks. 2025 is going to be compelling. We touched upon 3 planets today, but in the Countdown 2025 webinar coming up at senseiChristopher.com, be a part of it, take some notes, and you will have a master path for success in 2025 because it's going to be a little blurry, basically. All right, Scott. Well, it's always fun, brother. I'm looking forward to next week when we're digging into the year. Everyone, we're so grateful. Thank you for watching. And remember, do not put up with a shift show. Lead out loud, especially the Pisces. We'll see you next week.
Love you guys. I'm ready for it. You ready for it, Christopher?
Yeah. Speaking of Pisces, pour me a drink. Just kidding.
I have a lot of Pisces friends, and there's always been a great Pisces connection for me.
Oh, I never met a Pisces I didn't really like.
Yeah.
I wouldn't like hand them all the passwords to my computer, but but I do trust them. They'll always do the right moral thing.
Yeah. My besties have always been Pisces in the past. So we love you, Pisces.